Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to spend some time talking specifically about Interfraternity Council Fraternity Recruitment. I want to kick it off with a few introductions of who will be joining us today. My name is Devin Hall, and I currently serve as one of the Assistant Directors in the Office of Student Activities in Cliff Alexander Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life. With my role, I primarily advise our Interfraternity Council, and I work with our men and support them through the formal recruitment process.
Hi everybody, my name is Colleen Blevins. I'm the Associate Director of Student Activities in Fraternity and Sorority Life, and I primarily work with our Panhellenic Association, with our women's organizations, as well as our NPHC Council as well. Today I'll be helping support Devin as he presents to you about the IFC fraternity process, and I will be also helping organize some questions. So with that, we want to ask you to just let us know if you can hear us. We want to make sure that everybody who is on is able to hear us. So in the chat box here in WebEx, just let us know if you can hear us. Just say yes or I'm here. And then that will also be where you will enter any questions that you have throughout the webinar. So what we will do is Devin will be presenting to you, and if any questions arise based on anything that we talk about, please enter your questions in there. Mark will take them, and he and I will organize them, and we will hopefully throughout the presentation answer some of those, but then we'll also have some Q&A at the very end of this that we will go through as well. So please let us know any questions that you have, and we look forward to sharing with you about our IFC fraternity community.
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. So before we dive into specifically our IFC community, we wanted to start off with a general overview of our fraternity and sorority community here at Miami University. So we are currently 1/3 of the student population, so around 5,000 undergraduate students are currently affiliated with one of our 46 social Greek-lettered organizations. And those organizations are governed, if you will, underneath 3 umbrella organizations. The one group we'll be spending some time talking about today is our Interfraternity Council, which is comprised of 24 all-men's fraternities that are all recognized nationally, so recognized by national organizations or headquarters. This council is governed by 10 executive officers and advised by myself under the Fraternity and Sorority Life office. And one of those 10 officers actually serves as the Vice President of Recruitment. So that individual works with potential new members in our students to make sure that if they have any questions about the recruitment process or joining any fraternities, they have a governing officer supporting them through those efforts. Members join through a formal recruitment process, and that formal recruitment process for IFC takes place in the spring semester. Next up, we have our National Panhellenic Council, also known as NPHC, which is comprised of 2 fraternities and 3 sororities that are recognized nationally and locally. Our NPHC organizations are historically Black Greek-lettered organizations, and they are also governed by an undergraduate group of students that are affiliated with their organizations, and they are also supported by our office. These organizations participate in an intake process, which differs from organization to organization. So if any students are interested in joining an NPHC fraternity, they're encouraged to contact that chapter president directly, and all that contact information is actually available via our website. The next council is our Panhellenic Association. This is comprised of 17 all-women's organizations that are recognized nationally, and some are recognized locally. This council is also governed by a group of undergraduate students, 10 executive officers that are affiliated members of those sororities, and is also advised by our Fraternity and Sorority Life office. Panhellenic also participates in a formal recruitment process that takes place in the spring semester. Awesome. So diving into our Interfraternity Council, we have 24 recognized fraternities. These organizations are recognized both by our office and the international and national headquarters. What that means, so all these organizations meet with our office on a regular basis, and our office staff have a great partnership relationship with their international and national headquarters. We support these chapters through recruitment, through membership education, through programming, philanthropy, and community service, and those types of projects. All the information on these organizations can also be found on our website or underneath the Interfraternity Council's website, and all that access information can be found on our website.
I want to touch briefly on, after Devin just spoke about our recognized organizations, our unrecognized organizations. Over the past several years, we have worked with quite a few national organizations to remove recognition of the fraternities and sororities that you will see on the right-hand side of your screen. All of this information can be found on our website, like Devin mentioned. If you go to miamioh.edu/FSLL, under that page you will go to About, and in our About section we have a list of these groups. So you will see this page look exactly like the right-hand side of the screen. Under those organizations, kind of where the plus sign is, you'll hit that plus sign, and each of these organizations, it will provide an explanation as to why these groups are unrecognized. If there is a set time for these groups to return to campus, that timeline will be listed in that explanation as well. We work very closely with national headquarters and national organizations to ensure the safety of our students on campus. If we feel that an organization is either not upholding the expectations of the requirements and for our fraternal organizations, then we will work with those national organizations to either put organizations on a probation, like a probationary status, or remove them from campus due to the ineffectiveness of the organization or the safety concerns that we might have. So those that are listed on the right are currently not recognized on campus at Miami. An unrecognized fraternity, just as we mentioned, is one that may choose to exist off campus, does not follow university policies or regulations. These organizations are not permitted to use university facilities, post flyers, or have any of the privileges recognized organizations have earned. Now, that definition is on our website. It's also in our student handbook. One thing that we do want to mention is that, like it says in that paragraph, there may be some organizations that choose to exist off campus. If those organizations choose to exist off campus, they aren't recognized, governed, or kind of no one oversees those groups if it is nationally or through our office. So these students are kind of working rogue with their the name of the organization, but they are not sanctioned by the national organization to use that name or to congregate or meet under the premise of that organization. That's really important because students who choose to join an unrecognized group or seek out an unrecognized group or joining an organization where there's an increased liability, there's less education, there's no membership expectations, and for us we feel may not be providing the safe environment that some of those groups that we work with, or all of the groups that we work with, can offer our students. So we really encourage you to meet with the students and meet with your students and talk with them about these groups, should they express an interest in some of them, and talk to them about the importance of joining a recognized fraternity or sorority on campus. Now, two fraternities on the right-hand side of the screen have done a lot of work nationally to make sure that our campus knows that their groups are not recognized here. Phi Kappa Psi and Sigma Nu, they do have alumni who are students, do not have an active chapter, and what those groups have done is they've taken out, they've taken active measures to make sure our community knows that these groups are not active and that our community should not be partnering or participating in anything under the name of those two organizations. For example, Sigma Nu has taken out letters in the school newspaper and they've written letters to former members asking for a cease and desist of all operations and the use of their name. Phi Kappa Psi has sent a letter to all of our sororities on campus and alerted them that they are no longer an active organization and that they are not, they do not have an active group here on campus. And so when we talk about we have a partnership with these national organizations, those are two really great examples that we want to ensure that our members are joining legitimate groups and that your students are joining organizations that will be lifelong membership opportunities, and they will be joining organizations that are in close relationship with their national organizations. So please make note of these groups. You can go on our website, like I mentioned, just to learn more about maybe why they are unrecognized and about the timeline should they return to campus. If you also have questions about these groups, you have a student who might know more might have expressed interest in joining one of these groups, you can always call us, and we're happy to talk through these opportunities and maybe how we can encourage your students to join our recognized organizations.
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. Now I want to dive into the eligibility, if you will, to joining one of our recognized organizations. Before we dive in and go through these requirements and policies, I just want to point out that all of these requirements are also outlined in the student handbook, right? So they're communicated to students throughout the fall semester, and they're also found via our website and communicated to students via newsletters. The first thing I want to spend some time talking about is complete one full fall or spring semester. Right, so with having this deferred recruitment model here at Miami University, we want to make sure students are successful at Miami as students first, right? Really putting forth that academic achievement opportunity for all students. So after they complete a full semester at an accredited university, they have to have a minimum of a 2.5 cumulative grade point average. I think it's also important to note that some of our organizations require a higher GPA than a 2.5, but that 2.5 GPA is the minimum to join many of our organizations. They also have to have 12 college credit hours from Miami or another accredited university. So what this means is dual enrollment and AP classes do not count toward the 12 credit hour eligibility to join one of our recognized organizations. Once again, the true intent of that is to make sure students are successful at Miami University prior to joining one of our fraternities and sororities. All students also will complete an online orientation course to fraternity and sorority life. The first part module is really an introduction to our fraternity and sorority life, talking a little bit about those recognized organizations, how to get more information about our organizations. Then step 2 of the module really talks about that new member education process. What does a healthy membership education process look like when joining one of our fraternities? And really making sure students are aware of those identifying factors as they begin their fraternity experience here at Miami. The last thing is they have to register, right? In order to join fraternity recruitment, it's really important that they register for that formal recruitment process on Campus Director by January 3rd at 5 p.m. All PNMs who do not register are not eligible to go through the formal fraternity recruitment process. So it's really, really important that they get that registration in by January 3rd. It's also really important to note there's no exceptions for anything that we see on the screen. As I started off mentioning, all this is outlined in our student handbook, and we follow with each individual. If they do have questions and comments, there's no exceptions to any of those rules. They must have that full college semester experience, that 2.5 GPA, and those 12 university credit hours. Awesome. So now let's dive into the formal recruitment week. I want to start off with a bit of an overview before we dive into day by day. On the screen now you'll see the outline of the week. So a kickoff is on Sunday, January 28th, and we'll go through Monday, February 5th is when they accept their bids online via Campus Director. At the bottom or the middle of the screen, if you will, you'll see some terms that I might use throughout this presentation. A PNM is identified as a potential new member. These are all individuals that are eligible to join one of those organizations. A bid is an invitation to join a chapter. It's important to note that some organizations or some students might receive 2 bids. That being they'll receive a bid via Campus Director or they will receive a paper bid from the fraternity. It's important to note that all bids must be extended and accepted on Campus Director, because that's how we organize each organization's new member roster and chapter organization roster. Accept, sit, and decline. These are 3 terms typically heard around after a student has been given a bid. They have the opportunity to accept the bid, sit on it, or decline it. Accept means to accept membership into that organization. Sit means not to accept or decline, which typically you see when students are thinking about that process before joining an organization, or declining a bid, meaning they're no longer interested in joining that organization. And then dropping. So after a new member joins an organization, if they're no longer connecting with the organization or anything else like that, they have the opportunity to drop that organization, right? So PNMs might hear the word drop throughout the recruitment process. Throughout the formal recruitment week, the one thing I do want to note on this slide is that all fraternities open houses will be open on Monday, January 29th and Tuesday, January 30th. Starting Wednesday, if a fraternity's new member class is already filled, they will have the option to close their house, meaning that they are no longer seeking new members to join their organization. Awesome. So let's dive into formal recruitment. So it starts with our final kickoff, which check-in starts at 3 p.m. and the kickoff itself will start at 4 p.m. I want to note here that our Interfraternity Council hosted Go Greek 101 sessions or fall kickoffs throughout this fall to engage students who are interested in joining one of our IFC fraternities to learn more about how to join. We also hosted open houses throughout the fall where students had the opportunity to learn more about each of our fraternities. If a potential new member or any of your students attended a fall kickoff and a Go Greek 101 session and visited 7 chapters throughout the fall semester, they actually will have the opportunity to be exempted from Sunday, January 28th IFC kickoff and meet the chapters. All of this will be communicated to potential new members after registration closes on January 3rd. Once they are eligible, we will communicate to them that they are exempt from that experience. IFC's Vice President of Recruitment is the one who oversees that process. And then to note for the Meet the Chapters. So after the fall kickoff, right, is that introduction to how to join our fraternities throughout the formal recruitment process and talking a little bit more about Campus Director. They'll have the opportunity to hear from each of our chapters. For what this Meet the Chapters looks like is it's 5-minute presentations from all 24 of our recognized fraternities. I know what you're thinking, wow, that's really quick. How are they going to learn about all the fraternities in just 5 minutes? That's why we've written really encouraging students to meet the chapters throughout the fall semester or have the opportunity to build those relationships on Monday and Tuesday's open house of that formal recruitment week. But for that Meet the Chapters on Sunday, they'll have the opportunity to at least hear from all 24 of our fraternities and get a quick snapshot about something as it relates to their organization. So the kickoffs take place on Monday and Tuesday. The open houses will take place on Monday and Tuesday. I want to note that bids or invitations to join a fraternity can start to be given out Monday at 10 p.m. Right, so that's when a lot of our students might start receiving some of those paper bids or some of those bids via Campus Director. It's really important to note that our students, once they are extended a bid, it's important they also make sure they get the bid extended on Campus Director and then accept it on Campus Director because that's how we keep track of those new member rosters. Open houses go throughout the week all the way to Saturday, February 3rd. As I mentioned earlier, the chapters have the opportunity to close starting that Wednesday. It's important to note that not all of our organizations will have their chapter houses open through Saturday. I would say it's not uncommon to see for around half of our organizations to fill their new member classes starting around that Wednesday, Thursday, and I would see a limited number of organizations are open on Friday and Saturday. And then the students will have the opportunity to accept, sit, or decline those bids all the way until Monday, February 5th, as we had mentioned, where they've got to accept their bids via Campus Director by 5 p.m. Myself and the Interfraternity Council will follow up with each individual member via email if they have not accepted their bids. So if we notice that their bids were extended and they had not yet accepted them, we will continuously remind the chapter that extended the bid and that P&M to accept the bid on Campus Director by 5 p.m. on that Friday. Awesome. So now I want to dive into, after the formal recruitment process, perhaps your student joins one of our organizations, what does support look like having joined one of those organizations? So we want to talk about is the education policies and support that your students may receive after joining one of our recognized IFC fraternities. The first thing I want to note here is our enhanced membership experience, or informally known as the EME. EMEs can be found on our Interfraternity Council's website. Please note that the IFC's website is currently under renovation, and each individual fraternity, all 24 fraternities, have recently submitted their EMEs for acceptance and to be published on our website. Those will be live soon, and communication will go out to new members about once those are live. But the enhanced membership experience is comprised of 3 different components. The first one is an outline of the membership education process. So really being transparent with potential new members and our parents and families about what does the curriculum or membership education experience look like for each of our fraternities. The next component of the EME is going to be an outlined calendar of events. This lets the Interfraternity Council know when is our organizations hosting events with the potential or with the new members, and what type of events are they doing. So on that calendar of events, it's very common to see a bowling night with the organization, a night for their new member meeting, or typically they'll go over some membership education processes or experiences or rituals with the organization. The last component of the EME is a letter to parents, families, and guardians. So all of our fraternities will send an email to all parents and families, letting them know a little bit about their organization, but also contact information for that chapter leadership. Once again, starting to build that partnership with you all as parents and families with each of our organizations on campus. The next program that potential or that new members will experience is what's called Greek Step Up. This is a bystander intervention program that all new members must participate in. The true intent of this program, right, is to educate our students about what are healthy signs throughout the membership education process and what are unhealthy signs. And if we do experience or see unhealthy signs, environments, or experiences, how to report that, and also how to intervene in those situations. So diving into conversations around healthy consumption of alcohol, or what does hazing look like, mental health, and empowering our students, right, how to intervene in those situations or experiences in meaningful and healthy ways. The next thing we want to talk about is policies, right? So all of our organizations uphold each of our fraternities and its members to the Student Code of Conduct, the university policies, and the Interfraternity Council bylaws and constitution, right? Once again, supporting the overall academic mission and making sure students are having a safe and healthy experience. It's also important to acknowledge that all of our organizations have a zero tolerance for hazing policies, both the local, national, and institutional level, right? And I want to talk about the hazing policies because this is where we turn to you all as our parents and families as being really great partners and helping us work with students to identify if anything is happening in our organizations. How do you empower your student to share that with our team or with the university, or encouraging you all to work with us to let us know of any information that is happening within any of our organizations so we can take the necessary steps to ensure that behavior does not happen in the future and hold that organization responsible to that student code of conduct, right? So we really value that relationship and have appreciated in the past when our parents and families and guardians have worked with us. So what kind of support is our recognized fraternities receiving? As I mentioned earlier, is that Fraternity and Sorority Life office will meet with those chapter presidents on a weekly or biweekly basis. Oftentimes what those conversations look like is, how are things going in the chapter, right? How's that new member education process going? What's the education look like? Do you need any help connecting to any resources on campus, right? Where are you looking for additional speakers to come in and talk about maybe mental health, or connecting our students to collaborate with athletics, to host escape the room activities, or small or high rope courses and things like that, right? Really supporting our organizations for whatever they are trying to implement or educate within their organizations, and we are those really great resources for those students in addition to the governing council, so the Interfraternity Council. The last piece on here is our headquarters partners, right? The work that we do, we couldn't do without our headquarters support. So what's really awesome is we've built a really close relationship with our headquarters partners over the years, and they've provided on-site support for our organizations throughout formal recruitment or the new member education experience. This support varies from organization to organization. Sometimes it's here during the formal recruitment process, or it's here during the membership education process, or it's here during initiation. But we're really, really proud to share that we have around 30 organizations or headquarters staff that commit to having someone here at Miami University during that time throughout the winter when they're learning more about their organization and joining those lifelong memberships. So expectations of membership, right? We spent some time talking about how to join, what support looks like and resources, and now what are some things that your student can expect out of the fraternity experience? I want to acknowledge first and foremost that school comes first, right? Academics is that #1 priority for our organizations and for our team and for Miami University. So supporting students through that, right? A lot of our organization will host study tables or office hours, right? Tutoring groups, all those things, supporting students academically and striving for that academic excellence. #2 is involvement. Oftentimes our team gets the question, can my student join things outside of fraternity life? Absolutely. We see a lot of our students not only involved within fraternity and sorority life, but involved outside of that. So our Association for Student Government, right? Some of our business fraternities that you'll see on campus, 4PAWS, tons of organizations where oftentimes a lot of our fraternity leaders also serve in leadership roles in other clubs and organizations and within their recognized fraternities, right? So once again, supporting those students to build a well-rounded portfolio to set them up for success in the job search. The last piece is that citizenship, right? So knowing that you are bigger than yourself, you're bigger than the Miami community, but looking at the Oxford community, the greater Butler County community, Ohio community, right? So really providing the opportunity to give back. A lot of our organizations participate in several different types of philanthropy, international or national service projects, or philanthropic initiatives. A really cool opportunity I like to highlight is every spring our students participate in what's called Greek Spring Clean, where we partner with several nonprofit organizations within the area to give back, to do service, right? Really engaging students in that citizenship piece, talking about community. You know, Miami, we really, in the academic spaces, talk about that global citizenship, right? How are we empowering our students to know how they can impact community, not only during their 4 years here at Miami, but after they graduate as well. On the screen here, as I'd mentioned, the Interfraternity Council being that governing board for our 24 recognized fraternities. These are 2 individuals on our governing board that support IFC chapters as it relates to formal recruitment. Right, our current IFC Vice President of Recruitment, Gabe Kraus, who's been working with a lot of those potential new members throughout the fall, answering questions. He's been facilitating those kickoff presentations and really supporting those men through this experience. Mitch Rehak is our incoming IFC Vice President of Recruitment. So he's currently shadowing Gabe, learning more about the formal recruitment process, how to support PMs and support chapters, and will serve as the primary Vice President of Recruitment for that 2018 year. So if you have any questions for the Interfraternity Council or want to reach out to them, or if your student has any questions and wants to reach out to them, they can reach Gabe or Mitch at ifcrecruit@miamioh.edu. And on the screen now, you will see myself and Colleen's contact information. As we shared, right, we see our parents and families and guardians as being those partners, right, supporting these students. They're our students, so how are we supporting them best moving forward? Here's our contact information, so please feel free to send us an email, give our office a call if you want to talk any questions out over the phone. If you have a specific question about eligibility and things like that later on, or your student have questions, you're more than welcome to direct them to our office or to the Interfraternity Council. We're happy to help in any way that we possibly can. Awesome. So we just gave you all a bunch of information, and I noticed that some questions have been coming in as Colleen and Mark are vigilantly writing down. So now we'll spend some time answering those questions. If you do have any questions, please reference the chat room on your screen to type in those questions, and we'll get them answered for you.
Okay, as some questions were coming in, we were able to answer them throughout the presentation, but we did have one about PNM registration. So the question was, what should be on the resume when your students are filling out the registration through Campus Director? There is a resume that, a space where students can upload that resume. So Devin, could you let everybody know what maybe are some recommendations to be on that resume?
Of course. I think some of the biggest themes that I've seen is high school involvement and any involvement from this fall semester. So we had mentioned not all student organizations have a requirement of that 12 university credit hours, so a lot of our students are joining organizations this fall, and I think sharing that information with our fraternities is really, really important. The most common things we see on resumes for students is athletic involvement, Kiwanis, or any type of involvement from their high school experience, and including that, right? Perhaps maybe even their anticipated major or other things I see on their resumes. I think it's important to note that our chapters are not printing off every resume and reviewing them on an individual basis, right? They're screening these opportunities to learn more about what is this student's objective or what are they looking to get out of their fraternity experience, right? So seeing maybe some of those service experience from high school, knowing they might be looking to get some of that service experience out of the fraternity, right? Perhaps they were in honors in high school and also are participating in honors here at Miami. So once again, really focusing on the academic experience or that athletic experience. A lot of our fraternities take pride in intramural sports, right? So looking for those things, oftentimes our fraternities might screen a resume looking for some of those highlights or for P&Ms. But please note that it's not an expectation to have a fully developed one-page, two-page resume with every single involvement, volunteer opportunity, philanthropic experience on that resume. It truly can be that type of outline that fraternities will briefly review.
Great. The next question is, how does the open house portion of recruitment work? So I know Devin briefly mentioned this. Maybe you can go into a little bit more depth. Do the students select which chapters they would like to spend time with, or do they need to visit all 24? If you could just explain that again.
Of course, great. So open house is truly, of our 24 recognized fraternities, 21 of them will be recruiting out of their physical chapter houses. So what that means is throughout or around campus, all of our organizations have facilities, and they will have open doors throughout that time. Right, so on that Monday and Tuesday of formal recruitment, their doors will be open for potential new members to visit those houses to learn more about them. I think it's also important to acknowledge that starting on that Sunday after the kickoff and after they hear from those quick 5-minute presentations, P&Ms will have the opportunity to submit a list of chapters they're interested in learning more about. Right, so they will go on Campus Director, they will select maybe 7 chapters they're interested in learning more about, and they will submit that to Campus Director. That lets the system know, hey, who are you interested in learning more about? All of our fraternities will also be uploading a list of, let's say, 150 potential new members. What will happen is Campus Director will essentially pseudo make them talk to one another to provide students a suggestion of lists of chapter houses to visit on Monday and Tuesday. It's important to note that P&Ms cannot see what chapters put them on their list or anything else like that. It's solely just an opportunity to encourage our potential new members to visit as many chapters as possible during that Monday and Tuesday of open houses. Right, and knowing that all students have the opportunity to visit any open house. Just because perhaps they're suggested to go and visit a particular chapter, but they're really interested in joining another organization, all doors are open and are accepting of all potential new members. So your student truly has the opportunity to visit all 20 of our chapters on that Monday and Tuesday. For our organizations that do not have houses, they'll be located in a classroom space. And all that information in the classroom space, once those are all finalized, will be communicated to students via Campus Director, but also via email.
And Devin, what will the students do in the open houses? What will that look like? Will there be a presentation? Will it be a meet and greet? If I were to go into a fraternity house or in a classroom, like what would I expect?
Great question. I would say it varies from each of our organizations, right? We see some chapters that are very, very strong at recruitment and very organized. When P&Ms walk through that front door, they'll immediately be greeted by a member. They'll have a conversation about that member. You know, why are you interested in joining our fraternity? Right? What are you looking for out of this experience? Some of them will perhaps already know some fraternity men from the fall semester, right? For those P&Ms who walk into a house, they're like, oh, hey, John, we had calculus together and those types of things. Or you know, hey, Steve, we went to the same high school. We'll see a lot of those conversations. I will say that it's very, I would say, natural as it relates to individuals coming in. I would say PowerPoints are very uncommon. Presentations and things like that are uncommon with a lot of our organizations. It's more often than not walking in, getting a tour of the chapter house, right? So the opportunity to go and maybe see a few of the individual rooms that the members stay in, see a dining area where perhaps they have meals together, where they host their chapter meetings once a week. But really just an opportunity to informally have a conversation with students about what does it like to join that organization. I think it's important to acknowledge that also formal recruitment is alcohol-free, right? So they will not be consuming alcohol with any of the members throughout that formal recruitment experience. It's completely dry, and our interfraternity council walks around throughout that formal recruitment experience and holds organizations accountable to that.
And then what should they wear?
Great question. Our men are very informal. I have seen it from sweatpants all the way to jeans. It's very uncommon to see any type of business casual or formal wear. It's a very casual experience. Our students are encouraged to be casual and to be them, right? Don't go out and buy something. Don't feel like you have to wear something to be liked in our organization. I encourage students, whatever you would wear to class, I would encourage you to wear this to this experience, right? Be comfortable is the number one thing that I always tell potential new members, and also that our chapters encourage men.
Great. And then we have a few more questions rolling in, so please, if we're not touching on anything that you would like to know, please let us know. Send us some questions in the chat box. The next one is, what are the expenses that the students can expect maybe to pay as members, like housing costs, food? I know it might differ based on their membership category, new members, or living in the house, not living in the house. What are the expenses? Can they find that information anywhere?
Of course they can. So all that information, I think it's important to acknowledge, it truly does vary from organization to organization, right? And all of those costs of membership, especially for that first semester for joining one of our organizations, can be found on our website. I think it's important to acknowledge, Colleen brought up some really great points as it relates to, is my first semester joining a fraternity more expensive than my second semester or second year in the fraternity versus my junior or senior year? Some things that I always point out to our families and partners is the first semester, typically organizations, potential new members will have to pay some type of an initiation fee, which is when they receive their badge, their membership education book, or perhaps some type of certificate or a recognition of joining that organization. Right, so typically there's a fee associated with that first semester for joining that lifelong commitment, right, that badge or pin. Their second year, some accrued costs to be anticipating is the cost of to live in the chapter house, right? So all our organizations, the living capacities vary as it relates to, are they, the sleeping arrangements and things like that. And that's truly why those costs can differ that second year. So I always encourage our parents and families to check that out on our website to learn more information. And typically, right, so the junior and senior year, they will see a decrease in dues because they perhaps are not paying for those initiation fees and not paying to live in the chapter house, right? And that's where we'll see those differing costs throughout the membership experience. But please, I highly encourage you to also encourage your students to check out all that information on our website.
Great. And then can you talk about the living in the fraternity house? So on-campus housing, they have RAs, they have resident directors. Is there anyone in fraternity housing who's responsible for oversight and support of the men who choose to live in?
Great question. So I think I'll start off with maybe some things of what. So Miami University has a 2-year live-on requirement, and we offer an exemption experience or process for our fraternities. I would like to be transparent that this process all happens in the spring, and potential, or I should say new members at this point, and organizations have to meet a certain type of expectation, right? So members still have to have that 2.5 GPA to be able to live in one of our fraternity houses, right? Putting academics first for those students is really, really important. And same thing with our organizations. They all have to be in good standing with Miami University and the Interfraternity Council, right? So if anything were to take place in the spring or anything else like that and they're no longer in good standing, they can lose that second year exemption, which means potential new members would not be eligible, or new members at the time would not be eligible to live in their second year and would have to live in the residence halls. For that live-in experience, typically what it looks like is it really builds awesome relationships with those new member classes, right? So it's very, very common for all of the sophomores to live in the house together their second year, to really build those relationships with one another, eat your meals together, study together, and those types of things. So we're thinking about or any staff living in, it truly varies from organization to organization. It's not common. I will point out that Beta Theta Pi will have a live-in, house director for that fall. I think some of our organizations are having conversations about what that looks like, so things might be different in the fall. I would encourage, if it's something that you're looking for or your student is looking for, to ask the organization when they're going through the open houses, what is your stance on a live-in advisor, a house mom is like some of the terms you hear thrown around. What does that look like? Always ask organizations, what's that conversation looking like in your chapter?
Great. Excuse me. We had a question about the requirements to join. So Devin earlier talked about those requirements being a student must have completed one full fall or spring semester, must have a 2.5 cumulative Miami GPA, and they must have 12 credit hours. And so someone asked, that 2.5 GPA requirement, if someone takes a class that drops them below that, can they still join? Can they still pledge a fraternity?
Great question. So as I mentioned earlier, there is no exceptions for that GPA and credit hour. What I do want to point out, though, is on behalf of our Interfraternity Council, this year we will allow GPA and credit hours to be impacted by winter term classes. So what that means, if your student after this fall does not have a 2.5 GPA or the 12 university credit hours, they will receive an email that says that they are ineligible to join one of our fraternities. They do not meet that requirement to join one of those organizations. But what they do have the opportunity to do is participate in winter term or J-term classes. So what that means, they will be placed on a list where they can self-identify that they are participating in or taking winter term classes. We will follow that individual's name, and once they verify after the winter term that they are above a 2.5 GPA and have those 12 university credit hours, we will move them over in the campus director system to allow them to participate in formal recruitment and to join one of our organizations. All of our chapters and recruitment chairs know that if a potential new member does not show up in campus director, that more than likely not means they are not eligible to join, and they should not extend a bid to that individual because they are not eligible to join. I think what's really important to know, right, the true intent of this is to ensure academic success for our students, right? We really want to make sure that they are successful when they join these organizations, and one way that we can hopefully help ensure that is making sure that they're setting themselves up for success when joining throughout that academic performance and commitment to those 12 university credit hours.
Okay. We do have another question, and I'll read it just straight from here. It is something that we have discussed in our office a lot this year, and this fall in our industry and student affairs, higher education, fraternity and sorority life, it has been in many of our conversations. So there has been lots of bad press across the United States about pledge deaths during the recruitment process. What does Miami have, what control does Miami have over hazing activities? How do you ensure it doesn't occur? And how do you protect students from unruly fraternity traditions? And so I think those are valid questions. It's conversations, as I mentioned, we have been having all semester. So Devin, if you want to touch on that, I'll probably touch on it a little bit as well. But
of course. I want to just dive in and reiterate that exactly what Colleen said. We're all having this conversation as an industry, right? We're not in this alone. Our organizations have chapters or organizations across the country. And we recently had the opportunity to attend a gathering of fraternity and sorority professionals to answer that exact question. Like, what are we doing? What have we historically done? And what do we need to be doing moving forward? And how do we support the chapters and the members of each of our organizations? I think I want to start off by acknowledging, I think Colleen might also talk more in depth about this, is Miami's being innovative. We recently have spent some time over the past year, Colleen has been working with a partnership with an organization to provide that new member orientation or online course. Miami was recently nationally recognized for providing an innovative program to educating our new members who are joining our organizations about what does it mean to be a fraternity man and a sorority woman, right? Like, we really take pride in ourselves in thinking critically and trying to answer that question. we want to acknowledge that we can't do it alone. We've really been reevaluating how are we partnering with our advisors. We've been really working on building relationships and providing resources for our advisors, acknowledging that those are the individuals that are in the room, right? They're there for those chapter meetings, so we need to make sure they are educated so they can provide the support that our organizations need. We also know that membership, the new member education process is really, really important, right? This is where we also really rely on that partnership with our headquarters to ensure that the membership educators for each of our chapters and their chapter presidents are very well educated about the membership education process or experience they are providing members to make sure that it's happening in a healthy and safe and meaningful way, right? These fraternity and sorority experiences are really about creating a sense of belonging, right? Building community. So how are we as a staff, as an institution, but also as chapters, having those conversations around building healthy community, healthy sense of belonging, right? Having those tough and challenging conversations, but providing the support necessary to make sure that our organizations are successful in the education process to truly instill that lifelong commitment, right? This isn't meant to be 4 years, it's truly meant to be for life. Colleen and I do this work because we had impactful fraternity and sorority experiences, and we believe in the movement, right? We believe in the experience, and we make sure that's happening in meaningful, healthy, and safe ways here at Miami University.
Great, thanks, Devin. I probably will reiterate some of the things that he said, maybe in just different language. We really have been talking about this a lot, and I think that all of our students are bought in, our leadership is bought in. They're actively having these conversations, and so we aren't talking at our students, we are talking with our students on how to be solution-oriented so that our membership organizations don't participate in behavior that is detrimental to the health and well-being of new members and active members. It's not just our fraternity men that are having these conversations, it's our sorority women trying to figure out how they can also be a part of the solution, how they can hold their friends accountable. We have, Devin mentioned this, but we have active relationships with national headquarters. We will have professional staff members and volunteers here on campus during the recruitment process and during initiation processes. We have made a commitment to those organizations that we will help fund their stay here. If it is an economic factor that they cannot afford to come to Oxford and stay for the duration of multiple weeks at a time because they have hundreds of organizations across the country, we will provide housing for those organizations, for their staff members to be here on campus because we have a commitment to our students here for their safety. So we will have headquarters here. Last year we had 30 of our organizations who were physically present during that kind of what we deem to be our riskiest time period, those first few weeks of the spring semester. So we have those partnerships and we have staff members and volunteers on campus working individually with those organizations present during their processes. We also look at three things that I think are really important. Education, making sure that our students are educated in terms of what is hazing, how to identify hazing, how to support members, friends who are hazing. For our sorority women, we have had women in the past who have alerted us that their friends were either being hazed or participating in hazing. And because of them stepping up and understanding how to intervene as bystanders, we have been able to stop either hazing in the midst of it or stop it from continuing on because our women have stepped up. We've also had friends who live in residence halls who are now able to identify what hazing looks like, if a friend could be, participating in a hazing process, and they have alerted their residence directors, and we have a very close relationship with Residence Life, and we talk through what that could look like for their residents as well. And so that education across campus for how to identify hazing, what hazing behavior looks like, so that we can stop it either in the midst of it or even before it happens. We also have a zero tolerance policy on hazing, like Devin mentioned earlier, and what that looks like is, from what I talked about with our unrecognized organizations, when we can identify that an organization is hazing, we will put a cease and desist on their chapter activities. And we will do an investigation through our conduct office to determine what the next steps will be for that organization. For some of them, it means chapter closure. because our first priority is the health and well-being of our students on campus, and if something is detrimental to that, we will not allow it to continue. So we have closed several organizations for that behavior, and we won't tolerate it. And so we want to make sure that once we find out about that, once we know about it, that that will not continue and that we will put an end to it. And again, the third thing is a partnership with you, with parents and family members. That will also help us identify if hazing is happening. You know your students best. You can tell if something is just a little bit off, if you're not in communication with them as much as you had been this semester. If something just doesn't jive well with you and you don't feel good about it, give us a call. Shoot us an email, and we can talk through it. If you wanted to know, I don't know if this sounds like hazing or this is hazing, but I just have a question about this behavior. Call us. We want to help you, but we want to make sure, again, that your students are safe. Sometimes we don't know everything that's happening, but your students are talking to you more than they're talking to us. And so parents of new members as well as active members, they can identify for us most of the time parents and friends. So people who talk to students the most or are with students the most, those are our biggest partners, and the people who have the best relationship with students who are participating or being hazed, they're the ones who let us know first. So if you hear of anything or you're concerned, or maybe you're talking with another parent, you're like, this just doesn't sit well with me, give us a call. Let's talk through it. Let's figure out what we can do. If it sounds like something that we're concerned about, we will work with our conduct office, Office of Ethics and Student Conflict Resolution, and our Dean of Students office to figure out an approach to make sure that our students are safe and healthy. So we are taking a very hardline approach to this. We have a zero tolerance policy for hazing. We are continuing conversations about this to make sure that our students are safe, and we are relying on our relationships and our partnerships across campus with our student leaders and with you as family members to help us with this as well. So we want to make sure that we have a great spring, and with everybody working together, understanding these policies and processes, we hope that we will be able to tackle this head on.
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't think we have any other questions, and so just as a reminder, Mark will work on getting this sent out to everybody. It will also be posted online. So if you had to jump out at any point, if you missed any portion of this, this will be available for you offline, and we are so appreciative of you taking the time to spend with us to learn about our fraternity recruitment process.
Awesome, thank you all. And a shameless plug, if your student has not registered for formal recruitment yet and they're interested in registering or participating in formal recruitment, please encourage them to do so as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you all so much.